The scent of crayons and apple juice clung to my cardigan as I wiped down the tiny tables in my kindergarten classroom. My fingers ached from helping 23 5-year-olds practice their letters all afternoon. Outside the window, Manhattan's early autumn rain drummed against the glass, each drop racing the others down the pane like the children had raced to the door when the final bell rang. I straightened, pressing a hand to the small of my back. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in that institutional glow that made even the cheerful alphabet posters look tired. This room had been my sanctuary for 3 years, a place where I could pour all the love I had into shaping young minds, where sticky hugs and gap-toothed smiles made the meager salary almost bearable. Almost. "Verena, you're still here?" Maya, the teacher from the classroom next door, appeared in my doorway. Her dark curls were escaping their clip, and she had what looked like finger paint on her collar. "It's already 6. Go home." "Just finishing up," I said, though we both knew I was stalling. Going home meant returning to the apartment I shared with my 2 older brothers, Caleb and Marcus, who would immediately start their nightly interrogation about my day, my love life, my general well-being. Their protectiveness had intensified after our parents died in a car accident 5 years ago, leaving us orphaned and clinging to each other. I loved them fiercely, but sometimes their concern felt like a cage. "Hot date tonight?" Maya asked with a knowing smile. I laughed, the sound hollow even to my own ears. "When do I ever have hot dates?" "Girl, you're 24 and gorgeous. You should be out there living, not hiding behind phonics worksheets." She leaned against the doorframe. "Speaking of which, some of us are grabbing drinks at Dionysus tonight, that new Greek place in Tribeca. You should come." Dionysus. Even the name sounded like temptation. "I don't know, Maya. I should probably—" "Say yes before I drag you there myself," she interrupted. "You deserve one night of fun, Verena. One night where you're not Sister Verena, protector of children and prisoner to your brother's overprotective tendencies." She was right. When had I last done something spontaneous? Something just for me? "Okay," I heard myself say. "Yes, I'll come." 3 hours later, I stood outside Dionysus, smoothing down the simple black dress I'd changed into at Maya's insistence. The restaurant gleamed like a jewel box, all warm golden light and expensive-looking marble. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see beautiful people laughing over wine glasses that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. "This is too fancy," I whispered to Maya as she pulled me toward the entrance. "Nonsense. Besides, it's happy hour. Even kindergarten teachers can afford happy hour." She linked her arm through mine. "Come on, live a little." The interior was even more stunning than the exterior. Dark wood, cream leather, and everywhere, those little touches that whispered of authentic Greece, rather than the sanitized version most restaurants offered. The air smelled of oregano, lemon, and something else. Something that made my stomach clench with an inexplicable hunger that had nothing to do with food. We found our colleagues at a table near the back, already deep into a bottle of wine. I slid into a seat, accepted a glass, and tried to relax into the normalcy of it all. Teachers comparing notes on difficult parents, laughing about classroom mishaps, enjoying being young and alive in the city. I was on my 2nd glass of wine, feeling pleasantly warm and relaxed for the first time in weeks when I saw him. He stood near the bar, talking to a man in an expensive suit. But even in profile, he was arresting. Tall, easily over 6 feet, with dark hair that looked like it had been styled by someone who understood that perfection was boring. His suit was charcoal, perfectly tailored to shoulders that suggested he spent time doing more than sitting behind a desk. But it was the way he carried himself that made me stare. Like he owned not just the restaurant, but possibly the entire city block. As if sensing my gaze, he turned. Our eyes met across the crowded room, and something electric passed between us. His eyes were the color of aged whiskey, amber with flecks of gold, and they held mine with an intensity that made my breath catch. The corner of his mouth lifted in a smile that was equal parts invitation and challenge. I looked away quickly, heat flooding my cheeks. What was I doing? Staring at a strange man like some desperate... "Verena?" Maya's voice cut through my spiral. "You okay? You look flushed." "I'm fine," I lied, keeping my eyes firmly on my wine glass. "Just warm in here." But I could feel him still watching me. The weight of his gaze was like a physical touch, making my skin prickle with awareness. I risked another glance, and found him moving toward our table with purposeful strides that made people step aside instinctively. He stopped at our table, and up close, he was even more devastating. Late 30s, perhaps, with the kind of face that belonged on ancient coins. Strong jaw, straight nose, lips that curved with an arrogance that should have been off-putting but somehow wasn't. A thin scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only imperfection in an otherwise perfect facade. "Kalispera," he said, his voice a low rumble with an accent that turned the Greek greeting into something almost indecent. His eyes found mine again, holding me captive. "Forgive the intrusion, but I noticed you from across the room." He extended a hand to me specifically, ignoring everyone else at the table. "Alekos Vasilakis." I took his hand automatically, expecting a brief, polite shake. Instead, his fingers closed around mine with deliberate warmth, his thumb brushing across my knuckles in a gesture that felt far too intimate for a first meeting. "Verena," I managed, my voice coming out breathier than intended. "Verena Blackstone." "Verena." He said my name like he was tasting it, deciding if he liked the flavor. "English?" "American, but my mother was English." "Ah." Something flickered in those amber eyes. "And what brings a beautiful American woman to a Greek restaurant on a Friday night?" "Friends," I said, gesturing vaguely at the table where Maya and the others had gone suspiciously quiet. "And wine. Good wine." His smile widened, revealing perfect white teeth. "The wine here is adequate at best. If you want truly good wine, you should let me take you somewhere better." The audacity of the suggestion should have offended me. Instead, I felt a dangerous thrill run through me. "I don't even know you." "No," he agreed, still holding my hand. "But that can be remedied. Have dinner with me tomorrow night. I know a place with wine that will make this..." He gestured dismissively at our bottle. "Taste like vinegar." "That's very presumptuous of you, Mr. Vasilakis." "Alekos," he corrected. "And yes, it is. But I find that hesitation is for people who have time to waste. I don't." His thumb traced another circuit around my knuckles. "Do you?" I should have said no. Should have pulled my hand away, laughed off his proposition, and returned to my safe, predictable life. But something in his eyes held me, a promise of danger and excitement, and experiences far removed from my routine of alphabet songs and parent-teacher conferences. "Okay," I whispered, wondering if the wine had made me reckless, or if I was simply tired of always being the good girl, the responsible one, the sister who never caused her brothers any worry. "Tomorrow night." His smile turned triumphant. "I'll send a car for you at 7. Where should I have it wait?" I rattled off my address before I could think better of it, and he produced his phone with the efficiency of someone used to getting exactly what he wanted. After he'd typed it in, he finally released my hand, but not before bringing it to his lips and pressing a kiss to my knuckles that made my entire body flush with heat. "Until tomorrow, Verena Blackstone," he murmured. "Kalinichta." Then he was gone, moving back through the restaurant with that same purposeful grace, leaving me staring after him like a fool. "Oh my God," Maya breathed beside me. "Do you know who that was?" "Alekos Vasilakis," I repeated, still feeling the ghost of his lips on my skin. "Alekos Vasilakis," Maya confirmed, her eyes wide. He's like one of the most successful attorneys in New York. Represents major corporations, celebrities, politicians. He's in the news all the time. And he just asked you out. He did, I said faintly, the reality of what I'd agreed to finally sinking in. I'd just accepted a date with a man completely out of my league, a man who probably expected sophistication and worldliness I didn't possess. What had I been thinking? You're going, right? Maya demanded. Please tell me you're going. I thought about my routine life, the same classroom, the same students, the same concerned looks from my brothers when I came home every night and had nowhere else to go. I thought about being 24 and feeling 40, about all the living I'd been putting off while I waited for. What exactly? I'm going, I decided, taking a long drink of wine that now did taste a bit like vinegar. God help me, I'm actually going. The next evening, as 7 o'clock approached, I stood in my bedroom in my 5th outfit change, fighting the urge to call the whole thing off. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The car will arrive in 10 minutes. Wear something you don't mind getting dirty. A getting dirty? What kind of date was this? Another text followed immediately. That came out wrong. We're going somewhere unexpected. Trust me. Trust him. I barely knew him. But something about that simple command made me smile despite my nerves. I settled on dark jeans, a soft cream sweater, and my favorite leather jacket, casual enough for whatever unexpected meant, but polished enough that I didn't feel completely out of place. When my brothers saw me heading for the door, both of them appeared like sentries. Where are you going dressed like that? Caleb, the older of the two, asked with that protective edge in his voice. Out, I said, keeping my tone light. On a date. With who? Marcus demanded, crossing his arms. Do we know him? No, you don't know him, and you don't need to interrogate everyone I go out with. I kissed both their cheeks quickly before they could start. I'll be fine. I'm 24, not 14. Verena, Caleb started, but I was already out the door, my heart hammering with a mixture of defiance and excitement. The car waiting at the curb was not what I expected. Instead of a sleek town car, it was a vintage motorcycle, gleaming black and chrome. And standing beside it, wearing dark jeans and a leather jacket that somehow looked more expensive than any suit, was Alikos Vasilakis. You said you don't mind getting dirty, he said by way of greeting, his eyes traveling over me with obvious appreciation. This is what I meant. I've never been on a motorcycle, I admitted. Then tonight is full of firsts. He produced a helmet from the bike's storage compartment and stepped close enough that I could smell his cologne, something with cedar and citrus that made me want to lean into him. Let me. He settled the helmet on my head with surprising gentleness, his fingers brushing my jaw as he fastened the strap. The intimacy of the gesture made my breath hitch. There, he murmured, his face inches from mine. Perfect. Now, the rules. Hold on tight, lean with me in the turns, and trust me to keep you safe. Can you do that? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He swung onto the bike with fluid grace, then extended a hand to help me climb on behind him. The moment I settled against his back, my arms wrapping around his waist, I felt that same electric connection from the night before, amplified by the physical contact. He was solid and warm beneath my hands, and when he started the engine, the vibration traveled through both of us. Ready? He called over the rumble. I tightened my arms around him in answer, and he pulled away from the curb with a smoothness that suggested he'd been riding for years. Manhattan blurred around us as we wove through traffic, and I found myself pressed against him, feeling the play of muscles in his back as he maneuvered the bike, feeling more alive than I had in years. This was insane, reckless, completely unlike me. It was perfect. We rode out of the city, across the bridge, and into areas I'd never explored. Eventually, he pulled into what looked like an abandoned industrial area, parking beside a building with no signage. Where are we? I asked as he helped me off the bike, my legs slightly unsteady. Somewhere unexpected, he said, with that devastating smile. Come. He led me through an unmarked door, down a flight of stairs, and into what had to be one of Manhattan's best-kept secrets, an underground restaurant that looked like it had been transported directly from a Greek island. Whitewashed walls, rustic wooden tables, strings of lights casting everything in a warm glow. The smell of grilled octopus and fresh bread made my mouth water. Alekos! A man who had to be in his 70s rushed over, embracing Alekos with obvious affection and speaking rapid Greek. Alekos responded in kind, then switched to English, gesturing to me. Verena, this is Christos. He makes the best food in New York, but he refuses to advertise because he doesn't want wrong people eating his family's recipes. Christos took my hand, his weathered face breaking into a smile. Any friend of Alekos' family here. Come. I prepare something special. He led us to a private corner table and disappeared into the kitchen, leaving us alone in the intimate space. This is incredible, I said, looking around at the dozen or so other diners, all of whom seemed to know they'd found something precious. How did you discover it? Christos is from my mother's village in Greece, Alekos explained, pouring wine from an unmarked bottle into my glass. When I first came to New York, he took me in like a son. This place is his gift to those who appreciate authenticity over appearance. I took a sip of the wine and nearly moaned. It was nothing like the restaurant wine from the night before. This was liquid velvet, complex and perfect. You were right, I admitted. This makes everything else taste like vinegar. His smile was satisfied, proprietary almost. I'm usually right, Verena. You'll learn that. The presumption should have annoyed me, but instead, I found myself smiling back, drawn into whatever game we were playing. Over the next 2 hours, Christos brought dish after dish. Grilled octopus so tender it melted on my tongue. Fresh bread with olive oil that tasted like sunshine. Lamb that had been cooked until it fell off the bone. Vegetables I couldn't name but devoured anyway. And through it all, Alekos and I talked. He asked about my teaching, and I found myself telling him things I rarely shared. My dreams of making a real difference. My frustration with the system that valued test scores over creativity. My love for those small moments when a child's eyes lit up with understanding. In return, he told me about his work as an attorney, though he was vague about his clients, focusing instead on the intellectual challenge of the law, the satisfaction of outmaneuvering opponents, the thrill of winning. What he didn't tell me, what I wouldn't discover until much later, was the truth about what he really did, about the takorakia and the blood that stained the hands he was using to pour my wine. But in that moment, under those strings of lights, with wine and laughter flowing freely, I didn't care about what I didn't know. I cared only about the way he looked at me, like I was the most fascinating woman he'd ever met, like he wanted to know every secret I held, like he was already planning how to make me his. By the time he drove me home, the city lights blurring around us as I clung to his back, I was already falling. I just didn't know how far I had yet to fall. The week after our first date passed in a haze of anticipation and increasingly bold text messages. Alekos pursued me with a single-minded intensity that should have alarmed me, but instead left me breathless. Thinking of you during a very boring deposition. You're far more interesting than contract law. Oh, what are you wearing? I want to picture you while I pretend to listen to this client. I haven't been able to concentrate on anything since I tasted you. When can I do it again? Each message made me smile like a fool during story time or lunch duty, earning curious looks from my coworkers. Maya cornered me in the break room on Thursday. Okay, spill. You've been glowing all week. How many dates have you been on with Mr. Gorgeous Attorney? 4, I admitted, unable to keep the smile off my face. He's intense, Intense how? How could I explain what it was like to be the sole focus of Alekos Vasilakis's attention? The way he listened to me like I was revealing state secrets when I talked about my students. The way he remembered every detail I'd ever shared, bringing me books by authors I'd mentioned in passing. Surprising me with tickets to a Broadway show I'd said I wanted to see. The way he touched me, always proprietary, always possessive, as though he'd already decided I belonged to him and was simply waiting for me to catch up. Good intense, I finally said. Overwhelming sometimes, but good. Maya's expression grew more serious. Just be careful, okay? Guys like that, they're used to getting what they want. I don't want to see you get hurt. Her concern was touching, but unnecessary. Alekos had been nothing but attentive, if a bit controlling in how he planned our dates down to the last detail. It felt nice to be cherished like that, to have someone care enough to orchestrate perfect evenings. I didn't see the cage being constructed around me, one golden bar at a time. That Friday, Alekos picked me up in a sleek black Mercedes instead of the motorcycle. His expression when I opened the door made my stomach flutter, pure masculine appreciation mixed with something darker, hungrier. "You look beautiful, Agape-mu," he murmured, his hand settling possessively at my lower back as he guided me to the car. "But you always do." "Where are we going?" I asked, as his driver pulled into traffic. "My place," he said simply. "I thought you might like to see where I live, and I've had my chef prepare something special." His place turned out to be a penthouse in Tribeca that occupied the entire top floor of a converted warehouse. The elevator opened directly into his living space, and I stepped out into a vision of masculine luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the city. Modern art adorned the exposed brick walls. The furniture was all clean lines and expensive leather, punctuated by pieces that looked Greek and very old. "This is incredible," I breathed, moving to the windows. The city sprawled below us like a glittering offering. "It suits my needs," he said, coming to stand behind me. His hand settled on my shoulders, and I felt him lean down, his breath warm against my neck. But it's been feeling empty lately. Cold. "You could get a cat," I suggested, trying to lighten the suddenly intense atmosphere. His laugh rumbled through me. I was thinking of something else to warm it up. He turned me to face him, and the heat in his eyes made my breath catch. "Verena, these past 2 weeks with you have been..." "Intense?" I supplied when he trailed off. "Necessary," he corrected. "Like breathing. I didn't expect you, Matakia-mo. Didn't plan for someone like you to walk into my life and make everything else seem irrelevant." My heart hammered against my ribs. "Alekos." He kissed me, cutting off whatever I'd been about to say. It wasn't our first kiss. We'd shared several over our dates, but this one was different. Deeper. More demanding. His hands framed my face with a gentleness that contradicted the hunger in his mouth, and I melted into him, my fingers fisting in his shirt. When he finally pulled back, we were both breathing hard. "Stay tonight," he said. Not quite a question. I knew what he was asking, knew what staying meant. And some part of me, the cautious part that sounded like my brother's warnings, told me it was too soon, too fast, too everything. But the larger part, the part that had been drawn to this man from the first moment I'd seen him, wanted nothing more than to say yes. "Okay," I whispered. His smile was triumphant. "Let me feed you first. I find I do my best work when you're not distracted by hunger." Dinner was served on his terrace, the city lights competing with candles for atmosphere. His chef had prepared a feast of Greek dishes, each one more delicious than the last. We ate and drank wine and talked about everything and nothing, the anticipation building between us with each passing minute. "Tell me about your family," I said, as he refilled my wine glass. "You know all about mine. But you've told me almost nothing about yours. Something shuddered in his expression. There's not much to tell. My father was a businessman. My mother died when I was young. I have cousins in Greece, but we're not close. That sounds lonely, I said softly. It was necessary, he said, echoing his earlier word. In my world, emotional attachments are liabilities. Trust is a weakness that can be exploited. Your world? I asked, sensing there was more beneath the surface. The legal world, he clarified smoothly. Opposing counsel will use any advantage. It's better to keep your personal life private, your vulnerabilities hidden. It made sense, though something about his tone suggested he meant something more than just legal strategy. But before I could probe further, he stood, extending his hand. Enough talking, he said, his voice dropping to that low register that made heat pool in my stomach. Come to bed, Verena. Let me show you what I've been dreaming about for 2 weeks. What followed was a night that rewrote every romantic experience I'd ever had. Alekos made love like he did everything else, with intense focus, absolute control, and a determination to master every aspect of the experience. He learned my body with the same thoroughness he probably applied to his legal cases, discovering what made me gasp, what made me beg, what made me shatter in his arms. But even in the midst of pleasure, I felt it. That edge of possession, the way he held me like he would never let go, the way he whispered mine against my skin like a prayer or a threat. In the aftermath, as I lay against his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow, he pressed a kiss to my forehead. You're mine now, Verena, he murmured. You know that, don't you? I should have questioned the claim, should have asserted my independence. Instead, I found myself nodding, already too far gone to recognize the danger. I woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the scent of coffee. For a moment, I was disoriented. Then memory returned in a rush of heat. I was in Alekos's bed, wearing one of his shirts, thoroughly claimed by a man I'd known for only 2 weeks. I should have felt panicked. Instead, I felt satisfied, safe. Good morning, Almorphi Mo, Alekos said from the doorway, holding 2 mugs of coffee. He wore only pajama bottoms, his chest bare and marked with faint scratches from my nails. The sight made me blush. How did you sleep? Like the dead, I admitted, accepting the coffee. What time is it? Almost noon. He settled onto the bed beside me, his free hand finding my thigh through the sheet. I've already had breakfast delivered, whenever you're ready. I noticed my phone on the nightstand, the screen lit up with notifications. I should check that. My brothers are probably worried about their baby sister who didn't come home last night. Alekos finished, his tone amused. Tell them you're safe. Tell them you're with someone who will protect you with everything he has. The intensity in his voice made me look up sharply, but his expression was unreadable. I grabbed my phone, my stomach sinking as I saw the number of missed calls and texts. Where are you? Verena, answer your phone. If you don't call in the next hour, I'm calling the police. I swear to God, Verena. I quickly dialed Caleb, and he answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? His voice was tight with anger and fear. We've been calling you all night. I'm sorry, I said, moving to the window for privacy. I stayed at a friend's place, and my phone died. A friend's place? Caleb's tone suggested he didn't believe me. What friend? And since when do you not come home without calling? Since I'm a grown woman who doesn't need to report her every movement to her brothers, I said, more sharply than intended. I'm fine, Caleb. I'm safe. I'll be home later today. Verena, I have to go. I'll see you this afternoon. I hung up before he could argue further, guilt warring with irritation. I love my brothers, but their protectiveness was suffocating sometimes. Trouble? Alekos asked, appearing behind me and wrapping his arms around my waist. Just my brothers being overprotective as usual. They love you, he said, his lips finding that sensitive spot below my ear. They want to keep you safe. I understand that impulse very well. His arms tightened around me, and for the first time, I felt a flicker of unease at the possessiveness in the gesture. The next weeks passed in a whirlwind. Alekos consumed my every free moment, and I let him. Dinners at restaurants I could never afford, weekends at his penthouse, nights that bled into mornings in his bed. He gave me a key to his place, a credit card for anything you need, a driver who appeared whenever I needed transportation. My brother's concern grew with each passing day. You're moving too fast with this guy, Marcus said one night when I'd come home just to grab clean clothes. You barely know him, and now you're practically living at his place? I'm happy, I said simply. Isn't that what matters? Not if you're happy because you're being manipulated, Caleb interjected, his lawyer's mind already working angles. Verena, I've been asking around about Alekos Vasilakis. Do you know anything about his client list? He represents corporations and high-net-worth individuals, I said, repeating what Alekos had told me. He represents people who should probably be in prison, Caleb corrected. Money launderers, mob connections, people with ties to organized crime. This guy isn't just some successful attorney, he's... Stop, I interrupted. Just stop. You don't know him like I do. And how well do you really know him? Caleb demanded. Where's he from? Where did he go to school? Who are his friends? What does he do when he's not with you? I realized with a start that I couldn't answer most of those questions. In all our conversations, Alekos had revealed very little about himself, deflecting with kisses or changing the subject with expert skill. But before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Alekos. I need to see you. Now. Something's happened. The urgency in the message made my stomach clench. On my way, I texted back, already grabbing my jacket. And there she goes, Marcus said, disgust evident in his voice. One text, and you come running. It sounded important, I defended. It always does, Caleb said quietly. That's how control starts. Verena, small things, reasonable seeming demands. And before you know it, you've given up everything that made you yourself. His words followed me out the door, but I pushed them aside. My brothers were wrong about Alekos. They had to be. I arrived at his penthouse to find him pacing, tension radiating from every line of his body. The moment he saw me, he crossed the room and pulled me into his arms, holding me so tightly I could barely breathe. Alekos, what's wrong? He pulled back just enough to look at me, his amber eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you from the beginning. My heart began to hammer. Okay. He led me to the sofa, keeping my hands in his. You know I practice law, represent certain clients. What you don't know is exactly what kind of clients, what kind of world I operate in. Caleb said, Your brother is right to be concerned, Alekos interrupted. I'm not just an attorney, Verena. I'm connected to people, organizations that operate outside the law, the Takarakia. He said the name like it should mean something. The Ravens? I translated the Greek slowly. Yes, it's what Americans would call the Greek Mafia, though we prefer to think of ourselves as a brotherhood, a family that protects its own and advances our interests through whatever means necessary. The floor seemed to tilt beneath me. You're telling me you're in the mob? I'm telling you that I've been involved with them since I was 18, when my father brought me into the fold. That the work I do, the clients I represent, they're all part of that world. A world that is dangerous and violent and not something I ever wanted to expose you to. His hands tightened on mine. But something's happened that changes everything. What? The word came out as a whisper. Someone knows about you, about us. The Castellanos, a rival family, they've learned that you're important to me, and they'll use that information to try to hurt me, to create leverage, to destabilize my position within the Takorakia. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. What does that mean? It means you're in danger, he said bluntly. It means that loving you, and I do love you, Verena, more than I've ever loved anything, has made you a target. And I can't. I won't let anything happen to you. The confession of love should have thrilled me. Instead, it felt like a trap snapping shut. So what do we do? His expression was grim, determined, and something else. Something that looked almost like triumph. We get married, he said. Immediately. The words hung in the air between us, impossible and insane. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious. His voice was steady, absolute. If you're my wife, you're protected by every alliance I've built, every oath that binds the families together. The Castellanos can't touch you without starting a war that would destroy them. Marriage is the only way to keep you safe. Alekos, we've known each other for 2 months. Time is irrelevant when the alternative is losing you. He cupped my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. Verena, I'm not asking. I'm telling you what needs to happen. Monday morning, we're going to the courthouse. You're going to become Mrs. Vasilakis, and you're going to be protected. The high-handed assumption should have enraged me. Instead, I felt a strange calm settle over me as I understood the truth. This wasn't a request. It was a command from a man who had decided I belonged to him, and who would do whatever necessary to keep me. I was already his. The marriage would just make it official. And if I say no? I asked, though we both knew the answer. His smile was cold. Then I'll find another way to protect you. One that might not leave you as much freedom. But I won't let you go, Verena. I can't. Not now. Not ever. Trapped. The word echoed in my mind as I stared at this man I thought I'd known. This man who had just revealed himself as something far more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. And the truly terrifying part was that even knowing the truth, even seeing the cage for what it was, I still wanted him. God help me. I still wanted him. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay in Alekos's bed while he held me like I might disappear if he let go, and tried to process what my life had become. In 2 months, I'd gone from a kindergarten teacher with a quiet, predictable existence to the soon-to-be wife of a man involved with the Greek Mafia. The absurdity should have made me laugh. Instead, it made me want to cry. Stop thinking so loudly, Alekos murmured against my hair. I can feel you spiraling. How can I not spiral? You just told me my life is in danger, that we have to get married immediately, that you're part of a criminal organization. We prefer brotherhood, he corrected with a hint of dark humor. Alekos, this isn't funny. No, he agreed, his arms tightening around me. It's not. But it's reality, agape mo. My reality, and now yours. I turned in his arms to face him, needing to see his eyes in the moonlight filtering through the windows. Why didn't you tell me from the beginning? Why let me fall for someone I didn't really know? Something painful flickered across his face. Because I'm a selfish bastard who wanted you to love me before you understood what that meant. Because I knew if I told you the truth that first night you'd run, and I couldn't bear that. His hand came up to cup my cheek. I've done terrible things, Verena. Things that would horrify the gentle woman who teaches children their letters. But from the moment I saw you, I knew I had to have you. Consequences be damned. That's not love, I whispered. That's obsession. With me, they're the same thing. No apology, just brutal honesty. I told you from the start I don't do anything halfway. That includes loving you. You don't own me, Alekos. His smile was sad. Don't I? You're in my bed. You've given yourself to me in every way that matters. Monday you'll give me your name. Tell me how that's not ownership. I couldn't, because he was right. Somewhere along the way, I had surrendered to him so completely that fighting seemed pointless. What happens now? I asked instead. Now you sleep. Tomorrow we'll face your brothers. They deserve to hear this from us, not from gossip or worse. Monday we marry. And then... He paused, his jaw tightening. Then we deal with the Castellanos. How? Leave that to me. Your only job is to stay safe, stay close, and trust that I will protect you with everything I have. The next morning, I called Caleb and Marcus, asking them to meet me at a coffee shop near our apartment. Alekos insisted on coming with me, and I was too tired to argue. The look on my brothers' faces when we walked in together confirmed they'd been expecting something like this. Caleb, Marcus, I said, after we'd sat down at a corner table. This is Alekos Vasilakis, my. I hesitated, unsure what to call him. Fiancé, Alekos supplied smoothly, his hand finding mine on the table. As of last night. The silence that followed was deafening. You're joking, Marcus finally said, his voice dangerously quiet. He's not, I confirmed, holding up my left hand to show the ring Alekos had slipped on my finger at dawn. A stunning ruby surrounded by diamonds that probably cost more than a car. Verena, can we talk to you privately? Caleb's lawyer voice was in full force. Anything you need to say to her? You can say in front of me, Alekos said before I could respond. We're going to be family soon. We should start as we mean to go on. Family? Marcus's laugh was bitter. You think we're going to welcome the mob into our family with open arms? Marcus, I started, but Alekos cut me off. I understand your concern, he said, his voice calm, but with an edge that suggested he wasn't used to being questioned. If my sister were marrying into my world, I'd be protective too. But the fact is, Verena and I are getting married. Monday, at the courthouse. You can attend and give her your support, or you can stay away and damage your relationship with her. The choice is yours. Don't you dare threaten us with losing our sister, Caleb said, his face flushing with anger. It's not a threat. It's reality. Alekos's thumb stroked over my knuckles, a possessive gesture. Verena is mine now. The sooner you accept that, the better for everyone. Verena's not anyone's property, Marcus snapped. Agreed, Alekos said mildly. She's not property. She's my wife, or will be. There's a difference. Alekos, maybe we should... I tried to interject. No. He turned those amber eyes on me, and I saw the steel beneath the surface. Your brothers need to understand how this works. They're worried about you. I respect that. But their worry doesn't change the facts. You're marrying me to keep you safe from people who would use you to hurt me. That's not negotiable. Safe from who? Caleb demanded. Who's threatening our sister? Alekos proceeded to explain, in careful detail that somehow made it sound both reasonable and terrifying, about the Castellanos, about their interest in destabilizing him, about how marriage would protect me. What he didn't say, but what I could read in the tightness around his eyes, was that there was more to the story. Layers of danger and complication that he was shielding me from. By the time he finished, both my brothers looked pale. This is insane, Marcus said. You're telling us our baby sister is caught up in mob politics because she had the misfortune of dating you. Yes, Alekos said simply. But I promise you this. I will protect her with my last breath. No one will hurt her. No one will use her. She's mine. and I defend what's mine. That's not enough, Caleb said, but his voice had lost some of its heat. As a lawyer, he understood the reality of the situation, even if he hated it. It will have to be, Alekos replied, because it's all I've got to offer. That and a lifetime of devotion to keeping her safe and happy. I looked at my brothers' faces, saw the anger and fear and resignation, and felt something crack in my chest. They were losing me, and we all knew it. I love him, I said quietly, the first time I'd said it aloud. I know it's fast and crazy and probably stupid, but I do. And if marriage is what keeps me safe, then I'll marry him. Verena? Caleb's voice broke. I need you to support me, I continued, tears threatening. I need my brothers at my wedding standing with me, please. They exchanged a long look, one of those wordless conversations only siblings could have. Finally, Caleb nodded. Fine. We'll be there. But Vasilakis? He turned to Alekos with fire in his eyes. If you hurt her, if you let anything happen to her, I don't care how connected you are or who you know, I will find a way to destroy you. Alekos' smile was cold and respectful. I'd expect nothing less. In fact, I'd lose respect for you if you didn't threaten me. She's worth fighting for. On that, we could all agree. Monday morning dawned gray and cold. I stood in front of the bathroom mirror in Alekos' penthouse, wearing a simple cream dress that Maria, Alekos' housekeeper, who I'd met that weekend, had somehow produced in my exact size. My hands shook as I tried to fix my hair. Here, Alekos said, appearing behind me. Let me. He took the pins from my hands and began arranging my hair with surprising skill, his fingers gentle despite the intensity in his eyes. Where did you learn to do this? I asked, watching him in the mirror. My mother, before she died. I used to watch her get ready for parties, help her with her hair. Something sad crossed his face. She would have liked you. Tell me about her. His hands stilled. She was kind. Too kind for the world she married into. It's what got her killed. The blunt statement made my breath catch. What happened? A rival thought they could use her to hurt my father. They were right. His voice was flat, emotionless in the way that suggested deep pain buried beneath. I was 12. After that, my father made sure I understood that love was weakness, that caring about anyone made you vulnerable. And yet you fell for me anyway, I whispered. Yes. He met my eyes in the mirror. Against every lesson I learned, every wall I built, I fell for you. Which means I'll protect you better than my father protected her. You won't end up like my mother, Verena. I swear it. The vow should have comforted me. Instead, it felt like a burden. Like I was responsible for the wounds a 12-year-old boy had carried into adulthood. The courthouse ceremony was brief and impersonal. Caleb and Marcus stood as witnesses, their expressions tight with disapproval and reluctant acceptance. Alekos had arranged everything with the efficiency of someone used to getting exactly what he wanted. A private room, a judge who seemed to know him, paperwork that had been expedited despite the usual waiting periods. Money, I was learning, opened every door, especially when it came with the implicit threat of Alekos Vasilakis' displeasure. Do you, Verena Rose Blackstone, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? I looked at Alekos, at this beautiful, dangerous man who had upended my life, who claimed to love me while admitting he was incapable of letting me go. His eyes held mine, steady and certain, as though he had no doubt about my answer. I do, I whispered. And do you, Alekos Dimitrios Vasilakis, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? I do. The words were a vow and a claim and a promise, all wrapped into one. Then by the power vested in me by the state of New York, I now pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. Alikos's hands framed my face as he kissed me. And despite the sterile setting, despite my brother's watching disapproval, despite everything I knew about the danger I was stepping into, I felt it. That electric connection that had drawn us together from the start. When we pulled apart, I was Verena Vasilakis, and there was no going back. The celebration dinner that night was at Christos's underground restaurant, the place where Alekos had first taken me. It should have been romantic. The warm lighting, the excellent food, the obvious affection Christos showed for Alekos, calling him Pidi Mu and embracing me as family. But the other guests at our private table cast shadows over any romance. There was Nikos, Alekos's second-in-command within the Takorakia, a man with cold eyes and hands that looked like they'd done violence. There was Dimitri, who handled financial operations, and spoke with an accent that turned every word into a potential threat. There was Andreas, whose role was never specified, but whose presence made my skin crawl. These were Alekos's people, his brothers in everything but blood. And now, as his wife, they were mine too. To the bride and groom, Nikos said, raising his glass. Karasmata for everyone. May your marriage be long and prosperous. And may your enemies fall before you, Dimitri added, the toast taking a darker turn. I felt Alekos's hand tighten on my thigh under the table, a silent message. Steady. The toasts continued, each one revealing more about the world I'd married into. These men spoke of loyalty and blood, of debts owed and favors collected, of respect earned through fear rather than affection. Your wife is quiet, Andreas observed, his eyes on me with an assessment that made me want to hide. Beautiful, but quiet. My wife is observant, Alekos corrected, his voice carrying a warning, and intelligent enough to know when to listen rather than speak. A useful quality, Nikos agreed. Too many women talk too much, reveal things that should stay hidden. I felt their eyes on me, weighing me, judging whether I was a weakness or an asset. And I understood, finally, what Alekos had been trying to tell me. In this world, I wasn't just his wife. I was a piece on a chessboard, something to be protected or exploited depending on the game being played. The thought should have terrified me. Instead, I lifted my chin and met each man's gaze steadily. I understand discretion, I said quietly. And I understand loyalty. My husband has my complete devotion. Anyone who threatens him threatens me. I hope that's clear. Silence fell around the table. Then Nikos began to laugh, a genuine sound of approval. She has fire, he said to Alekos. I wasn't sure, but yes, she'll do. Of course she will, Alekos said, his hand moving from my thigh to wrap around my shoulders, pulling me possessively against his side. I don't choose poorly. Later, as we drove back to the penthouse, my home now, I realized with a start. Alekos was quiet, his thumb tracing circles on my palm. What are you thinking? I finally asked. That you surprised me tonight. I thought you might be intimidated by them, but you stood your ground. I meant what I said, about loyalty. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressing a kiss to my knuckles. I know you did. And they know it too now. You passed the test, Agapi Mo. That was a test? Everything is a test in my world. Every interaction, every conversation. They needed to see that you understand the stakes, that you can be trusted. And if I hadn't passed, his expression darkened. Then I would have had to work harder to protect you from them, as well as from the Castellanos. But you did pass. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. I should have been flattered. Instead, I felt exhausted, weighed down by the realization that even among Alekos' own people, I had to constantly prove myself worthy of his protection. What kind of life had I signed up for? That night, in his bed, our bed now, Alekos made love to me with a tenderness that contradicted everything I'd seen at dinner. He whispered Greek endearments against my skin, worshipped my body like it was something sacred, brought me to pleasure with a focus that left me shaking. Mine, he breathed against my throat, my wife, my cardia mau. And as I surrendered to him once again, I thought about the Greek word he'd used. Cardia. Heart. I was his heart. And in his world, that made me both the most protected and the most vulnerable thing he possessed. The question was, which would prove stronger in the end? The first 2 weeks of marriage were a study in contradictions. By day, I returned to my classroom, teaching phonics and tying shoelaces as though my life hadn't been completely upended. My students noticed the ring, and I deflected their innocent questions with vague answers about a private ceremony. Maya was less easy to satisfy. You got married without telling anyone? She cornered me during lunch duty, her voice a mixture of hurt and disbelief. Verena, what's going on? This isn't like you. It was sudden, I admitted, watching the children play, but it felt right. Sudden doesn't even begin to cover it. 2 months ago you didn't even have a boyfriend, and now you're Mrs. Vasilakis? Her eyes narrowed. Are you pregnant? Is that why the rush? No, I said quickly. Too quickly, perhaps, because her expression grew more concerned. Then what? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been swept up in something you don't fully understand. She wasn't wrong. But how could I explain that I'd married into a world where violence lurked beneath expensive suits, where loyalty was enforced through fear, where my new husband was both my greatest protection and my most dangerous complication? I love him, I said instead, and at least that was true. Despite everything, despite the revelations and the darkness and the danger, I had fallen completely for Alekos Vasilakis. Love isn't always enough, Maya said softly. Just promise me you'll be careful, and if you ever need help, you'll call me. I promised, knowing I never would. Involving Maya in my new reality would only put her in danger. By night, I inhabited a different world entirely. Alekos's world. I learned to navigate dinners with his associates, to interpret the coded language they used, to recognize when conversations shifted from business to brotherhood matters. I learned to smile and nod while they discussed things that made my stomach turn, to excuse myself before they revealed details I didn't want to know. And I learned the geography of Alekos's body. Every scar, every story etched into his skin. The knife wound on his ribs from a disagreement when he was 20. The burn mark on his shoulder from a cigar, deliberately placed during an interrogation he wouldn't discuss. The bullet graze along his forearm that he dismissed as carelessness. Each mark was a reminder of the violence he lived with, the danger that surrounded him like a second skin. Does it frighten you? He asked one night, catching me tracing the path of an old scar. Knowing what I've done, what I'm capable of? Yes, I answered honestly, but not in the way you might think. I'm not afraid you'll hurt me. I'm afraid someone else will hurt you, and I'll lose you. His expression softened, something vulnerable breaking through his usual control. That won't happen. I've survived this long, agape mau. I'm not going anywhere. But even as he said it, I felt the weight of his lie. In his world, survival was never guaranteed. 3 weeks into our marriage, everything changed. I was leaving school, my arms full of papers to grade, when a black SUV pulled up beside me. The window rolled down, revealing a face I didn't recognize. Sharp features, cold eyes, an expensive suit that marked him as someone from Alekos's world. Mrs. Vasilakis, he said, my new name sounding like a threat. Get in. We need to talk. Every instinct screamed danger. I don't know you. I'm Marco Castellano. He introduced himself, and my blood went cold. The rival family. The threat Alekos had married me to protect against. 5 minutes of your time. That's all I ask. Or I can follow you home, make this much more uncomfortable for everyone involved. My fingers tightened on my papers. What do you want? Just a conversation. In the car, Mrs. Vasilakis. Now. I climbed in, my heart hammering, and immediately regretted it as the door locks engaged with a soft click. Where are we going? I demanded, as the driver pulled into traffic. Nowhere far, just a drive while we chat. Marco settled back in his seat, studying me with unsettling intensity. You're younger than I expected. Prettier too. I can see why Alekos moved so quickly to secure you. What do you want? I repeated. To understand what you know about your husband's business, about the Takorakia, about certain financial arrangements that have recently come to light. I don't know anything about his business, I said, which was mostly true. Alekos kept me deliberately separate from the darker aspects of his work. I think you know more than you're saying. You're intelligent, observant. Alekos wouldn't have married someone stupid. Marco leaned forward. Here's what I know. Your husband has been moving money, large sums, through channels that don't quite add up. Money that should be going to Brotherhood Ventures but seems to be disappearing into private accounts. I don't know what you're talking about. No? Then perhaps this will interest you. He pulled out a tablet showing me surveillance photos. Alekos meeting with men I didn't recognize in locations that looked deliberately obscure. Your husband has been holding meetings with the Antonelli family, our rivals, enemies of the Takorakia. The accusation hung in the air between us. You're lying, I said, but my voice wavered. Am I? Or is your husband not quite the loyal Brotherhood member he pretends to be? Marco's smile was cold. I'm telling you this as a courtesy, Mrs. Vasilakis, because when the truth comes out, and it will, you'll be caught in the crossfire. Unless you're smart. Smart how? Smart enough to distance yourself now. Smart enough to tell me what you know about his real operations, his real loyalties. Smart enough to save yourself before Alekos drags you down with him. Stop the car, I demanded. Let me out, now. Think about what I said, Marco advised as the SUV pulled to the curb. Think about whether you really know the man you married or if you've been as deceived as the rest of us. I stumbled out onto the sidewalk, my papers scattering in the wind, my whole body shaking. The SUV pulled away, leaving me standing on a street corner in the gathering dusk, my world tilting on its axis. Was it possible? Could Alekos be betraying his own brotherhood? I pulled out my phone with trembling hands and called the only person I could. Agapi mu, Alekos answered immediately. Is everything all right? I need you to come get me, I said, my voice breaking. Please. Something happened. 20 minutes later, I was in Alekos's office at his law firm, wrapped in his suit jacket while he crouched before me, his hands gripping mine. Tell me everything, he demanded, his voice deadly calm. Every word. I recounted the conversation with Marco, watching Alekos's expression grow progressively darker. By the time I finished, his jaw was tight with barely controlled rage. That son of a bitch approached my wife, he said, the words clipped and dangerous. Threatened you. Tried to turn you against me. Alekos, is it true? Are you working with the Antonellis? His eyes met mine, and I saw the calculation there, the weighing of how much truth to tell. Yes, he finally said. The admission stole my breath. But you said the Antonellis were rivals. They are rivals to the Castellanos, not to me. He stood, pacing to the window. Verena, the Takorakia is not a monolith. It's a collection of families, each with their own interests, their own agendas. The Castellanos have been trying to consolidate power, to control operations that should be distributed equally among all families. I've been building alliances to counter them, to maintain balance. By meeting secretly with their enemies, by doing what's necessary to protect what's mine. He turned back to me, including you. The Castellanos want me out of the way so they can seize control. Marrying you wasn't just about protection, Verena. It was about securing my position, proving I had stability, roots, something worth fighting for beyond just money and power. The truth of it crashed over me. You used me. Our marriage, it was about your political position within the Brotherhood. No. He crossed to me in 3 strides, pulling me to my feet. It started that way, perhaps. But what I feel for you is real, Verena. The love is real. Everything else is just strategy. Just strategy? I tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. You married me as a chess move. I married you because I love you and because it served my interests. Those things aren't mutually exclusive. His voice softened. I know how this looks, but you have to trust me. Everything I've done has been to protect you and to build a future where we're safe, where the Castellanos can't touch us. By going behind your own Brotherhood's back, by outmaneuvering enemies who would destroy us both if they could. His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his eyes. I need you to trust me, Cardiamu. Can you do that? I looked into those amber eyes, saw the desperation and determination there, and realized I was already too deep to turn back. Whether I trusted him or not, I was bound to him, legally, emotionally, and now politically. I don't know, I whispered honestly. Then let me prove it to you. He kissed me, hard and possessive, and I felt the familiar pull of desire mixed with fear and anger and 100 other emotions I couldn't name. That night, he made love to me with an urgency that felt like proving something, like staking a claim all over again. And afterward, as I lay in his arms, I felt the first flutter of movement in my abdomen. I froze, my hand moving to my stomach. What's wrong? Alekos asked immediately, his voice sharp with concern. I think I might be pregnant. The words hung in the air between us, changing everything once again. His hand covered mine, pressing against my still flat stomach. How long have you suspected? I just realized. I've been so stressed with everything I didn't even notice I was late. I looked up at him, fear and hope warring in my chest. Alekos, if I'm pregnant, then you're carrying my child. He finished, his voice filled with something like wonder. My heir. The possessiveness in the word should have alarmed me. Instead, I felt his hand spread protectively over my abdomen and knew with bone-deep certainty that he would destroy anyone who threatened this baby. Our baby. We need to see a doctor, he said, already reaching for his phone. Get confirmation. Make sure you're healthy, that the baby's healthy. It's late. I don't care what time it is. His voice brooked no argument. If you're pregnant with my child, we're not waiting until morning. 2 hours later, we sat in an exclusive private clinic that Alekos had apparently called in favors to open after hours. The doctor performed an ultrasound, and there on the screen was the unmistakable flutter of a heartbeat. Congratulations, the doctor said with a smile. You're about 8 weeks along. Everything looks healthy. 8 weeks. I'd gotten pregnant almost immediately after we'd first slept together. Alekos stared at the screen, his hand crushing mine, his expression one of pure, undiluted possessive pride. My son, he breathed. Or daughter, I corrected. Either way, mine, ours. He looked at me, his eyes bright with emotion I'd never seen before. This changes everything, Verena. Everything. I knew he was right. A baby made me not just his wife, but the mother of his heir. made me indispensable to his legacy, his future, his dynasty, made me a target in ways I was only beginning to understand. But as I watched his hand trace over my stomach with something like reverence, I realized I didn't care. Whatever danger came, whatever political machinations were being played out around us, we would face it together. We had to. For the tiny life growing inside me, we had to find a way to survive. Even if survival meant becoming someone I'd never imagined being. The pregnancy changed me in ways that had nothing to do with morning sickness or swelling ankles. It gave me purpose beyond simply surviving in Alekos's world. Now, I was building a future for someone who would depend on both of us. It also made me a more valuable target. "You can't go back to teaching," Alekos announced 3 days after we'd confirmed the pregnancy. We were having breakfast on his terrace, the October sun warming the space despite the autumn chill. "Excuse me?" "It's not safe. You're too exposed. Too predictable. The Castellanos know your schedule. Know where to find you." His tone suggested the matter was already decided. "You'll tender your resignation today. Alekos, I love teaching. And I love you alive and safe." He set down his coffee cup with deliberate care. "This isn't negotiable, Verena. Not with my child growing inside you." The possessive emphasis on my child made something in me bristle. Our child. "Our child," he corrected, though his expression suggested the distinction was semantic at best. "Who needs her mother protected? You know I'm right." The infuriating thing was, he was right. Since the encounter with Marco Castellano, I'd felt eyes on me everywhere. Black SUVs that seemed to appear too often. Men in suits who lingered too long near the school. The subtle surveillance that Alekos assured me was his people keeping watch, but which felt increasingly claustrophobic. "What am I supposed to do all day?" I asked, hating the petulance in my voice. "Whatever you want. Shop. Read. Prepare for the baby." His hand found mine across the table. "Or help me." "Help you how?" "I'm setting up a legitimate foundation. Educational programs for underprivileged children. It needs someone with actual teaching experience to run it. Someone who understands what these kids need." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "You'd have complete control, access to significant funding, the ability to make a real difference. And you'd be working from my offices, where security is absolute." It was a cage, but a gilded one, a way to keep me close while giving me purpose. "I'll think about it," I said, knowing I'd already decided. The alternative, sitting in the penthouse all day, waiting for danger to find me, was unbearable. I submitted my resignation that week. My principal was understanding, if confused by my sudden departure. Maya was less so. "This is about him, isn't it?" she said when I told her over coffee. "He's controlling you, Verena, making you quit your job, keeping you isolated." "I'm pregnant," I interrupted, the words spilling out before I could stop them. Her eyes widened. Oh, honey." She pulled me into a hug. "Is that why you married him so fast?" "No, I didn't know then." I pulled back, wiping away tears I hadn't realized I was shedding. "But it changes things, Maya. He's right that I'm too exposed here. And this foundation he's setting up, it's a good opportunity. Or it's a way to keep you under his thumb," she said gently. "Verena, I'm worried about you. You're not yourself anymore. You're always looking over your shoulder, always checking your phone like you're waiting for bad news. That's not healthy. That's not safe." "Safe is relative in my world now," I said, then realized how telling that phrase was. My world. Not our world. Not the normal world. My world, which was Alekos's world, which was a world of shadows and violence and constant vigilance. "Promise me something," Maya said, gripping my hands. "If you ever need to get out, If things get too dangerous or too controlling, you'll call me, day or night. I'll help you. I promised, knowing I never would. Leaving Alekos wasn't an option anymore, not with his baby growing inside me. The foundation office was on the same floor as Alekos's law firm, connected by an interior door that he insisted remain unlocked, in case you need me. The space was beautiful, floor-to-ceiling windows, modern furniture, and everything I could possibly need to build educational programs. And everywhere, security. Cameras I pretended not to notice. Nikos or one of his men always stationed just outside my door. The constant awareness that I was being watched, protected, controlled. I threw myself into the work, designing after-school programs and summer camps, identifying schools in underserved neighborhoods that needed support. It was fulfilling in ways I hadn't expected, using my teaching experience on a larger scale, making decisions that could affect hundreds of children instead of just my classroom of 23. But I couldn't shake the feeling that it was all a distraction from the real question. What was happening with the Castellanos? Alekos refused to discuss it, changing the subject whenever I asked. Brotherhood business, he'd say. Nothing for you to worry about. But I did worry, especially when I noticed the late-night meetings, the hushed phone calls in Greek, the tension that seemed to radiate from him whenever certain names were mentioned. It came to a head 6 weeks after I'd started at the foundation. I was working late, reviewing grant applications, when raised voices from Alekos's office cut through my concentration. The connecting door wasn't quite closed, and I heard Nikos shouting in Greek, his voice sharp with anger. Einai trelos, Nikos said. Den boris natokanes afto. Alekos's response was quieter, but no less intense. I caught only fragments. Den eches epilogi, giatin oikogene amu, datokano. Family. He'd said something about family. My hand moved instinctively to my growing belly. 17 weeks now, just starting to show. The voices quieted, and a moment later, Nikos stormed out of Alekos's office, his face dark with fury. He stopped when he saw me standing in the doorway. Kyria Vasilakis, he said stiffly. You should go home. It's late. What's happening? I demanded. What was that about? Ask your husband. He brushed past me without another word. I found Alekos at his desk, his head in his hands. He looked up when I entered, and I saw exhaustion etched into every line of his face. How much did you hear? He asked. Not much. Just Nico sounding angry, and you mentioning family. I moved to sit across from him. Alekos, what's going on? What aren't you telling me? He was silent for a long moment, weighing his words. Finally, he sighed. The Castellanos have made a move. They've convinced several families that I'm a traitor, that my meetings with the Antonellis prove I'm working against the Brotherhood's interests. His voice was flat, controlled. They're calling for a vote, to have me removed from the Takorakia. My blood went cold. Removed how? Expelled, stripped of protection, marked as an enemy. He met my eyes. And anyone associated with me would be fair game. Including me, including the baby. Yes, the single word held a world of pain and fury. What are you going to do? I'm going to fight. His jaw tightened. I'm going to prove that everything I've done has been for the Brotherhood's benefit, that the Castellanos are the real threat. And I'm going to make sure you and our child are protected, no matter what it costs me. How? By calling in every favor I'm owed, by exposing every dirty secret the Castellanos have tried to hide, by showing the other families exactly who the real traitor is. He stood, circling the desk to pull me into his arms. And if that doesn't work, by taking you somewhere they'll never find you. I'm not running, I said, surprised by my own vehemence. I'm not hiding while you fight this battle alone. Verena. No. I pulled back to look at him. You told me I was yours, that we were in this together. That means I stand with you, Alekos, whatever comes. Something fierce and proud flashed in his eyes. You're sure? Because once this starts, there's no going back. You'll be painted with the same brush, targeted the same way. I'm already targeted. At least this way, we face it together. He kissed me then, hard and desperate, and I tasted fear on his lips beneath the passion. The Brotherhood meeting was called for 3 weeks later, giving Alekos time to prepare his defense. I watched him work with an intensity I'd never seen, compiling evidence, building alliances, calling in favors that people owed him. And I learned things about my husband I'd never known. He wasn't just a lawyer. He was a strategist, a politician, a man who understood power in all its forms and knew exactly how to wield it. He was ruthless when necessary, charming when it served him, and absolutely unwilling to lose. You're brilliant, I said one night, watching him review documents that proved the Castellanos had been skimming Brotherhood funds for years. He looked up, surprise crossing his face. What? The way you think, the way you see angles no one else does. You're brilliant, Alekos. I moved to sit on his lap, my growing belly making the position awkward but manageable. Our baby is going to inherit that mind. His hand splayed across my stomach, which had rounded significantly in recent weeks. I hope they inherit your heart instead. Your capacity for love, for seeing good in people. Even when those people are in the Greek Mafia, his laugh was rueful. Especially then. The night before the meeting, I couldn't sleep. I lay beside Alekos, feeling him feign sleep, while tension radiated from every muscle. Tell me the truth, I finally said. What are our real chances tomorrow? He was silent for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, 50-50. I have enough allies to make it close, but the Castellanos have been working this angle for months. They have people convinced I'm a threat to Brotherhood stability. And if you lose, then we run. I have money hidden, passports ready, a plan to disappear so completely that even the Takarakia won't find us. His arm tightened around me. I won't let them hurt you or our child, Verena. I'd burn everything I've built before I let that happen. It won't come to that, I said, trying to convince both of us. You're going to win tomorrow. You have the truth on your side. Truth matters less than perception in my world. He rolled to face me, his hand cupping my face in the darkness. But I'm going to fight for us with everything I have. I promise you that. I believed him, and as his lips found mine, as we came together with desperate intensity, I sent up a silent prayer to a God I wasn't sure I believed in anymore. Please, let us survive this. Let us build the future we're fighting for. Let love be enough, just this once. The Brotherhood meeting was held in a place I'd never been, an elegant estate in Westchester that belonged to the eldest family in the Takarakia. I wasn't supposed to attend. Wives were traditionally kept separate from Brotherhood business, but Alekos had insisted. They need to see you, he'd said that morning as I dressed in an elegant navy dress that accommodated my pregnancy. Need to see that I'm not some reckless bachelor making impulsive decisions. You and the baby represent stability, legacy. That matters to these men. So I sat in a formal parlor with the other wives, while the men gathered in what had once been a ballroom, their voices carrying through the old walls. The women eyed me with a mixture of curiosity and pity. First Brotherhood crisis? Asked an older woman, her gray hair swept into an elegant chignon. I'm Elena Dimitriou. My husband has been with the Takarakia for 40 years. Verena Vasilakis. I introduced myself, my hand moving protectively to my belly. Ah, yes. Alekos's wife. The one causing all this trouble. Her tone was matter of fact, not accusatory. You know the Castellanos are calling for his head? I know they're trying to paint him as a traitor, I said carefully. And are they wrong? Another woman asked, her expression hard. My husband says Alikos has been meeting with enemies, moving money in suspicious ways. My husband has been protecting Brotherhood interests, I replied, keeping my voice steady. The Castellanos are the ones betraying the Takorakia, stealing from their own brothers. That's what he claims, Elena said gently. But claims and proof are different things. Before I could respond, the murmur of voices from the ballroom swelled. Alikos had begun his defense. I couldn't hear the words clearly, but I heard the rhythm of his speech, confident, compelling, building his case with the skill of a master attorney. For nearly an hour he spoke, and the tenor of the murmuring shifted. Surprise, consideration, and from some quarters, anger. Then another voice rose, Marco Castellano, from what I could tell, his tone aggressive and accusatory. The two men went back and forth, their words lost, but their hostility clear. "This is bad," one of the younger wives whispered. "I've never heard Marco so angry." The argument escalated. I heard furniture scraping, raised voices, someone shouting, "Enough!" Then a sound that made my blood freeze. A gunshot. Chaos erupted. The wives screamed. I was on my feet immediately, moving toward the ballroom despite Elena trying to hold me back. "Verena, no, you can't. That's my husband!" I wrenched free and ran toward the sound. The ballroom doors burst open and men poured out, their faces grim. My eyes scanned desperately for Alikos, my heart in my throat. Then I saw him, being supported by Nikos, blood staining his white shirt. "Alikos!" I pushed through the crowd, not caring who I shoved aside. His eyes found mine, pained but alert. "I'm fine, just grazed." "You were shot." My hands were shaking as I tried to see the wound. "Marco's aim was off," he said through gritted teeth. "Nikos got to him before he could try again." "Where is he?" I demanded, looking around at the gathered men. "Where's Marco?" "Being restrained," Nikos said darkly. "Shooting at a brother during a formal meeting violates every code we have. He's finished." "Not finished enough," Alikos said, his voice cold. "Take me to him." "Alikos, you need a doctor," I started. "After. First I handle Marco." He straightened, shaking off Nikos's support, despite the blood seeping through his shirt. "All of you, bear witness. The Castellanos just proved everything I said about them." I followed as they led him to a study, where Marco Castellano was being held between two large men. His face was bruised, his expensive suit torn, but his eyes held nothing but defiant rage. "You destroyed my family," Marco spat. "Your evidence, your lies." "My truth," Alikos interrupted. "Every document I presented was authentic. You and your family have been stealing from the Brotherhood for years, and you tried to cover it up by accusing me. They'll never believe. They already do. Your attack proved your guilt, Marco." Alikos moved closer despite his wound. "The vote was unanimous. Your family is expelled, your assets seized, your protection revoked." I watched Marco's face crumble as the reality hit him. Expulsion from the Takorakia was essentially a death sentence. Without the Brotherhood's protection, the enemies he'd made over years would come for him. "My wife," Marco said desperately. "My children. They're innocent." "They'll be provided for," one of the older men said. "Relocated given new identities. But you, Marco, you face Brotherhood justice." I didn't want to know what that meant, but I saw it in the looks exchanged between the men, in the way they led Marco out of the room. He wouldn't survive the week. "Verena, take him to the doctor," Nikos said, gesturing to Alikos. "The rest of us will handle cleanup." I didn't argue. I just helped Alikos to the car, my hands sticky with his blood, my whole body shaking with delayed shock. The private doctor Alikos used stitched him up in the estate's medical room, declaring the wound superficial. "You're lucky. Another inch to the left and we'd be having a very different conversation." Luck had nothing to do with it, Alekos said, wincing as the doctor worked. Marco's always been a terrible shot. This isn't funny, I said, my voice breaking. You could have been killed. Our baby could have lost their father before they were even born. Alekos's expression softened. He reached for my hand, pulling me closer. But I wasn't killed. I'm fine. We're fine. This time? What about next time? What about all the times that will come because this is your world, because you can't walk away from the Takarakia even if you wanted to? Do you want me to walk away? The question hung between us, weighted with implications. Could he even walk away? Would they let him? I want our baby to grow up with a father, I whispered. I want to stop being terrified every time you leave for a meeting. I want a normal life, he finished. Verena, I can't give you that. You knew what I was when you married me. I knew you were an attorney with connections. I didn't know you were someone people would shoot at during formal meetings. Actually, you did know. His voice was gentle but firm. You just didn't want to see it. But you're seeing it now, and I need to know. Can you live with this? Really live with it? Because it's not going to change. This is who I am. I looked at him. This beautiful, dangerous man who'd upended my life, who I loved despite every rational reason not to. And I thought about the baby growing inside me, about the future we were building together. I can live with it, I finally said. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. When our child is old enough to understand, you give them a choice. You don't force them into this world. You let them decide if they want to be part of the Takarakia, or if they want something different. Alekos was silent, his jaw tight. My father never gave me that choice. Then be better than your father. I placed his hand on my belly where our baby was moving. Be the father you wish you'd had. Something shifted in his eyes. Pain and determination and love all mixed together. I promise. Our child will have choices I never did. The drive back to Manhattan was quiet, both of us processing what had happened. Alekos had won, but the cost was evident in the lines around his eyes, the way he held his wounded side. What happens now? I asked as we pulled up to the penthouse. Now the Brotherhood reorganizes. The Castellano holdings will be redistributed, their operations assigned to loyal families. He helped me out of the car, his movements careful. And I consolidate my position. After tonight, no one will question my loyalty or my leadership. You're moving up, I realized. I'm surviving. In my world, they're the same thing. He led me into the elevator. But yes, I'll have more influence now, more power to protect what's mine. What's ours? I corrected. His smile was tired but genuine. What's ours? That night, as we lay in bed, Alekos's hand resting on my growing belly, I felt our baby kick against his palm. His sharp intake of breath told me he'd felt it too. There, I whispered. That's your child saying hello. Tomorrow moo, he breathed, wonder in his voice. Our baby. Are you scared? I asked. About being a father? Terrified, he admitted. What if I'm like my father? What if I don't know how to love without controlling, how to protect without suffocating? Then I'll teach you, I said simply. The same way you're teaching me how to survive in your world. We'll figure it out together. He pulled me closer, careful of his wound. I don't deserve you, Agape Mu. Probably not, I agreed. But you're stuck with me anyway. His laugh rumbled through me. The best trap I ever walked into. The months that followed were surprisingly peaceful. The Brotherhood stabilized under new leadership, with Alekos playing a key role in the reorganization. His influence grew, his position solidified, and with it, our security. I flourished in my role at the foundation, expanding programs and seeing real results in the communities we served. The work gave me purpose beyond being Alekos's wife, beyond preparing for motherhood. And my body changed, growing our baby with each passing week. Alekos was fascinated by every development, attending every doctor's appointment, reading every book on pregnancy and childbirth, preparing the nursery with an attention to detail that would have been comical if it wasn't so touching. "What if I don't know what to do when the baby cries?" he asked one night, his hand splayed across my enormous belly. "Then we'll figure it out," I said, "together, like everything else." At 37 weeks, I woke to contractions that took my breath away. Alekos was immediately on his feet, timing them with the efficiency of a man who'd memorized every stage of labor. "It's time," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled panic. "We need to go to the hospital." "You're more nervous than I am," I observed, gripping his hand through another contraction. "I've faced armed enemies with less fear," he admitted. "At least I know how to handle them. This," he gestured helplessly at my belly. "This is completely out of my control." "Welcome to parenthood," I said with a breathless laugh. 14 hours later, after more pain than I'd known existed and more hand-crushing than Alekos's fingers probably deserved, I held our daughter in my arms. She was perfect. Tiny and wrinkled and perfect, with a shock of dark hair and eyes that would probably turn amber like her father's. "Korimu," Alekos breathed, his finger tracing her impossibly small hand. "My daughter." "Our daughter," I corrected automatically. "What should we name her?" We'd discussed names for months, unable to agree, but looking at her now, the answer seemed obvious. "Katerina," Alekos said softly, "after my mother, if you agree." I thought of the woman who'd died protecting what she loved, whose loss had shaped the man beside me. "Katerina Vasilakis," I said. "It's perfect." My brothers arrived within the hour, their earlier disapproval melting when they saw their niece. Caleb held her with surprising gentleness, while Marcus tried not to cry and failed spectacularly. "She's beautiful," Caleb said, looking from the baby to me. "You did good, little sister." "We did good," I corrected, smiling at Alekos. As visiting hours ended and everyone left, it was just the three of us. Alekos sat beside my bed, Katerina sleeping in his arms, his expression one of such profound love and terror that it made my heart ache. "I promise you," he said to our daughter, "I will be better than my father was. I will give you choices, opportunities, love without conditions. I will protect you, but I won't cage you." "Good promises," I said softly. He looked up at me, his eyes bright. "Thank you. For her. For giving me a reason to be better than what I was raised to be." "You were always better, Alekos. You just needed to believe it." As I watched him hold our daughter, this man who'd claimed me so completely, who'd upended my life and rebuilt it into something I never could have imagined, I realized something profound. I'd run into his world seeking escape from danger, but I'd found something far more precious. A love fierce enough to survive darkness, a partnership strong enough to face any threat, and now, a family worth fighting for. The future was uncertain. Danger would always lurk at the edges of our life. But we'd face it together. Alekos, Katerina, and me. And somehow, that made all the difference.